Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2020 show. I'm your host, Don Kay, and we are again at the race shop of the Grant King Racers. When things open up, you've got to come down. This is a spectacular place to visit. It's a working museum. There's all kinds of cars. You know, it's just a fun place to come and a fun place to visit. And if you're looking for somewhere different to have a Thanksgiving or Christmas party, be it family or company, you need to look into the Grant King shops. They will hold up to 40 people. They got tables and chairs and all that, and you can work out either catered or you can bring your own or whatever you want to do. It's open and available and a great place to go. So if you're interested in looking into something like that, call Stephanie. The number is 317-820-3595. Today's show is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, the SVRA, and McGilvery's Pub and Eatery and Speedway. There is the holiday season, in case anybody's forgotten, is coming around, in Christmas time. And if you're looking for something for a race fan, I got a suggestion. Look up the 500shop.com. This place has almost anything you could want. If you're looking something for a family or a friend, something a racing oriented, he's the guy. The 500shop.com. Check it out. Look it up. Michael Spangle has almost anything you could possibly think of, and at a good price. So look them up. You have a dental problem, you need a dentist, get the best. The Indy Dental Group, Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis, have phenomenal practice. They can take care of you. Give them a call, make an appointment. Number is 317-846-6125. As a matter of fact, we just came from there, and Sharon loves it. Good people. You have computer problems? I was born to have computer problems personally. We now have the A+ affordable computer doctor. Steve Freeze is the man that can take care of it. And why is he a doctor? Because in our day, doctors made house calls. Steve can make a house call if necessary. Give him a call, discuss your problem, see what he can do for you. The number is 317-328-0766. And have you ever wondered what it would be like to drive your favorite race car on your favorite track? Anything from dirt midgets at the Chili Bowl to Formula One car at Nürburgring. Indy Simulation can put you in the driver's seat of their Sim Experience full motion race simulator. Take your choice of over 160 cars and tracks and iRace, the same simulation professional drivers use to race their real world rivals. Learn new tracks and stay sharp between races. Visit indysim.com today to book your free demonstration drive. And if you haven't been to the IMS Museum yet, you got to go there. The Andy Granatelli exhibit is really quite interesting to see. So we get a chance, stop by. Have you ever wondered why these people like to drive high-speed open-wheel cars? Why don't you take a ride and find out? The Indy Racing Experience can help you understand that. To get a ride or look into getting one, which probably won't be until next year now, but go to indyracingexperience.com, find a date that will work for you, and in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount. Or you can call the office. Number is 317-243-7171 and ask for Shonda. It is time to check out the schedule of 2021 for SVRA. It's up, it's out, and what they're doing is really going to be quite interesting. They got 18 events this year. And I also recommend Speed Tour Magazine, top class magazine, first class publication, great pictures, great stories. And if they're having an event in the town you're not familiar with, they'll tell you what places to go, what to see. So go to svra.com and log on and subscribe to Speed Tour Magazine. And while you're there, check the schedule for 2021. I think you'll find it exciting. And they've got 3 more events. And if you're near any one of them, I highly recommend you go. So check it out. You need to get insurance for your home, your car, your commercial property. Do what most of us have done. We call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance, located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Whatever your problem, I can almost assure you will get you better coverage for less money. Number to talk to Mike is 317-248-0070. Call him, tell him what you need. He'll help you out. And are you interested in a vintage car? Have you got one you would like to have restored? Well, the Grant King shops can help you out. Give them a call, tell them what you've got or what you're looking for and what you'd like to accomplish, and they'll be glad to help you. Number is 317-820-3595. Now, my guest today is a gentleman who was born in Indianapolis. He was educated, got his college 2 degrees, a bachelor in marketing at Long Beach State and then his MBA at San Jose State. He took up driving a little bit in SCCA in Southern California and won the Southern California G Production Time Trial Championships in 1980. And since then, he's been an executive with numerous companies that were involved in motorsports. Nortel, for one, he was a vice president of marketing. He's also worked with AT&T, Corvus, Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Carolina. And he now has a very well-known company called Mark Dill Enterprises. And he just into something new, and we'll talk about that. But first, I want to welcome Mark. Thanks for taking the time to chat.
Thank you, Don. You know, let me insert, you mentioned the Speed Tour magazine. I'm going to have an article in that in the next issue about Jeff and Matt Brabham racing Brabham BT35s down at COTA this year. So that's a little insight to what's going to be in that magazine.
You know, it's interesting, speaking of SVRA, and we'll get to you in a minute, but Tony Perella, the owner and CEO of the operation, goes to major racetracks. He doesn't put them on a little dirt track in a corner somewhere. He goes to the major big name racetracks, and since his purchase of SVRA, it has grown immensely.
Yeah, it's the fastest growing motorsports organization in the United States. I mean, it started out very small, so we're building on a small base there, but he's growing double digit, and to think that he's able to come out with an 18 race schedule, given the climate in 2020, I think that speaks volumes to how much sponsors really see the value in the access, the channels he provides to their customers.
And he was telling me that they televised the races this year, and they had more than in excess of 1 million viewers.
Yeah, I didn't go to very many of the races, and I would watch them on the SVRA app. And the guys that get involved with that, they do a brilliant job. I mean, the commentators, they could work for NBC Sports. So, and the racing is compelling, and Trans Am's mixed in with it. So it's a good show.
It certainly is. Now let's get to your show. You've been involved in motorsports in a number of different directions, and been heavily involved over the years in representing major top 500 companies and sponsorships in Indy cars. And I think one year, if I'm not mistaken, one of your sponsors finished 1-2 in the 500.
Yeah, that was Nortel. That was Ari Lyondike and Scott Goodyear in 1997. I got to go to Victory Lane, and Ari handed me a jug of milk. That was just something I never dreamed would ever happen.
What got you into the marketing aspect of racing?
Well, I mean, I was in marketing and public relations. That's where I developed my skill set. And I've always had a passion for racing, as you described. I was born in Indianapolis, and incidentally, I also graduated from Indiana University. So it's just always been, you know, it's a story you hear all the time among racers. I just picked up on it, you know, when I was very little, 5 or 6. I was just fascinated by the Speedway and the 500. And when I saw the opportunity, I finally got to a point in a company where I had enough of ability to make decisions about big things, and saw the connection between what was happening with data networking, which was a lot of what Nortel was about, and high-speed technology and teamwork that is required in racing. And I drew that analogy, and the board of directors agreed to it, and we did it for, 4 years. That's a good long run for a non-automotive company in motorsports.
You know, I have mentioned this to you on a number of occasions. It seems to me that you spend more time on a computer than anybody I know, because You are on Facebook and your website, which is firstsuperspeedway.com. Stories of the early years and the drivers and characters involved in the sport as it was growing. And there's something almost daily and sometimes twice a day. You'll come up, you've got the connection now and people recognize what you're doing. You get pictures from the teens and the early 20s and 30s of various drivers and, and the stories about them. And as I said, I got to think you spend most of your waking hours when you're not cutting the grass on the computer or taking
Yeah,
your
well, I'm on
grandson
a lot, but that's the easiest access I have to interacting with people. And, with all the division in this country right now, it's great to be among racers where there's, no matter what they think or believe, there's one thing we can agree on. It's that auto racing in the United States is wonderful, and especially the open wheel IndyCar stuff. So that's a happy place we can all go to and meet. And I enjoy engaging people, getting their feedback. And like you said, I now have people contacting me and providing a wealth of images, that they found in their deceased grandfather's shoebox. A good example, if you go to my site, you'll find something called the Paul Sheedy collection. And Paul Sheedy actually was pretty much a big shot in the AAA in the 1920s. And he was track manager at Altoona, the board track. And the collection of photos there you'll find are just astonishing. And if you're interested in particular in board track racing, there's a lot of that, obviously, with his Altoona involvement. So I get excited. People that I don't even know approach me and say, hey, would you want to publish this? And I'm like, sure, this is great stuff. So also working with David Story and his amazing art. He's another guy that should be on your show. So if people haven't checked it out and you're a race fan and you like history, I'm proud of it. It's the world's largest collection of pre-1920 auto racing content, original content that was developed in period. So I'll shut up now. And
your website is enormous and very well received, because I check it out from time to time. And the time you have to spend to, when people contact you and say, we got this, are you interested? Now you got to put it all together and get the story and the whole thing. It takes a lot of time, but I also notice a lot of pictures with your grandson. So you do get away from the computer on occasion, quite a few occasions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my priority right now. My grandson, my book, and my website go hand in hand, and of course SVRA. So you do all three of those things, and tomorrow I'm going to spend all day with my grandson. I'm really looking forward to it. So that's great for an old man. Gives me a full life.
Now, you had mentioned a book. You just published a book, just came out, and the title is?
It's The Legend of the First Super Speedway, and the subtitle is The Battle for the Soul of American Auto Racing.
What is its primary content? Is it the early years of the Speedway?
Yeah, it chronicles the first decade of the 20th century. And what I wanted to tell was this story about how everything came together. And the crowning achievement was the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I don't go into the 500. I feel like that's a story that's been told over and over again. But I talk to a lot of people that are fascinated with these early days, and they may know, what happened in the 500, but it's like life did not begin then. So the book comes to its culmination with the first race meet at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway after the track was paved with bricks. And for example, Ray Haroon, the Marmon Wasp was not designed for the 500. It was designed for the Speedway and this big race called the Wheeler-Shebler 250. and old Ray just dominated that race. So he's more than just a one-time Indy 500 winner at the Speedway.
And I bet a lot of people don't realize that either.
No, and that's what's been great. I mean, digging into this stuff, I found, for example, the Marmon Wasp, to continue on that, it was designed in 1909 and it was built in 1910. It was first tested at the Speedway by a Marmon driver by the name of Harry Stillman, because the star driver, Ray Haroon, was out in California at the Playa del Rey board track, which was the first board track in the United States for cars. They were motorcycles and bicycles, but that was for cars. And so Ray wasn't available. Harry Stillman, they called him Harry Sunshine Stillman. He practiced and kind of shook the car down. And then, and then as May came around, they actually, he ran it in Atlanta in the first week of May. They had a 2-mile dirt track down there. And he won the maiden voyage of the Marmon. He won that race. And then he came to Indy and really just, it was it's the most advanced high-tech car out there. And he just dominated.
There's been a lot of interesting stories over the years, and I find it interesting to see, how did all of this happen? How did we get to today? What got us there? And that's what you're into, is how we got here. What started it? What got people's attention? What made them want to come and watch? And how did the 500 build into what it is today, the biggest single-day sporting event in the world?
That's right. And so what I do is I go from 1902 to the May event in 1910. And so the two characters who dominate their point of view, I kind of switch back and forth depending on the chapter between Barney Oldfield and Carl Fisher. And I came to the conclusion for all my studies that those two guys had more to do with shaping the lasting impact of what defines American auto racing. I mean, the first pace car was at the Indy 500, first pace car ever. But and the idea of building a speedway, and they didn't use the checkered flag until 1906. So there's just a lot of these things, the way races were officiated and so forth, that came into practice during those days. And I like to tell the story of Barney and Carl, because these guys were raucous guys. I mean, they wouldn't be politically correct by today's standards one bit, but they're a lot of fun and a little bit crazy, and they took amazing risks.
I would think to have built, just the thought of building the thing and then actually doing it, you had to be taking a huge risk, because nobody had ever had anything like this, obviously. And
Yeah.
Although I think California early on drew crowds, but in the Midwest, it wasn't the going thing exactly at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was burgeoning in the Midwest, probably about the same as California, but the times of the day, I mean, you got to recognize that the Indian Wars, for example, were not over till 1920. So the expanse of the United States, California was a lot further away from Indianapolis in the Midwest back then than it is today. And so the story also, I found, uncovers kind of what people relate to today as a red state versus blue state kind of culture. And you had the more elite in the northeastern corridor of the United States, guys like William K. Vanderbilt, who started the Vanderbilt Cup, and that's talked about in my book, represented that mindset. And they called people like Carl and Barney and the rest of us in the Indiana, Michigan area Westerners. And that was not a compliment. That was more like calling somebody a hick or a hayseed. And so there was constant tension. And And I talk about that story. Barney, for example, was a constant irritant to these people because he could do some amazing things. He was known for barnstorming, but he was also a legitimate driver. And AAA didn't take kindly to that. And the reality is they were afraid Barney was going to be bigger than they were. And, just one man and his ability to draw crowds. And so they didn't want him kind of taking over the racing landscape in the West with his crazy barnstorming events. And so it was, he got banned. There was constant tension. And then I wanted to tell the story of Carl, and they were friends. They had interaction. I also, secondary figures are all the founders of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I try to get into their personalities, make them real people, not just names in a history book. So it's really told in the style of a novel, but I'm very religious to the facts.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because you hit with the stuff you write that I've read, you hit the minor details that nobody would ever have thought of, and probably until they read it said, "Oh boy, I didn't know that."
Yeah, I feel like I'm unearthing like artifacts or dinosaur bones, stuff that was forgotten about, and like what I talked about with the Marmon Wasp. But you were talking about the race cars back then. The book starts in 1902 at Barney's very first auto race. He had raced bicycles and motorbikes, but he got recruited by a friend who helped build the car, and it was actually Henry Ford's first race car. And his friend was named Tom Cooper. He had recently had an operation to remove his appendix and wasn't up to driving a car, so he knew Barney was a crazy dude and fearless. And so he stuffed him in the car. And that car, it was a wood ash frame. It used a tiller, not a steering wheel. It had no oil pan. They had what they called oil sight feeders right above the cylinders. And those were glass vials full of oil, and they would just leak into the cylinders to keep the thing lubricated. And of course, it couldn't go much more than 10 miles, but they didn't run races much longer than that in 1902. And he drove that car for the better part of a year and actually set the first closed circuit 60-mile-an-hour lap record at the Indiana State Fairgrounds dirt oval in June of 1903. And the guy that was promoting that event was Carl Fisher. So it's just uncovering this stuff. It's gratifying to me to know that people are enjoying it, but also when I hear, I didn't know that. And I know that they really know a lot about racing and its history. So I just love sharing.
Well, I can assure you that when I read your book, there'll be almost every page. I didn't know that. I've been around here a long time, but I couldn't write a book on what I've done because I can't remember. If somebody said, remember in June of 61, we were, oh yeah, that I remember, but to think of it myself, I don't generally.
Yeah, well, I'm having that experience too. I get reminded of something and then I go, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
It's like coming back after a night of a little too much drinking and then people start reminding you what you did. And, memories fade, I guess.
You still do some writing for the Speedway in the program, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't do anything this year. Mandy Walsh, who's wonderful to work with and is the key point person to pull all that together, reached out to me and several other writers for ideas. So we'll see how that goes. But I've really enjoyed, and I don't know how many articles I've written for them, maybe 20, 25, I don't know. And they're all about racing history. And the thing I think that's great about IMS and the 500 in particular is that you still can't find a race that was around 100 years ago, you know.
Right.
And so until like 1927, I think, when Monaco first ran, the Speedway has bragging rights that every year is a 100-year anniversary of something significant around the Indy 500.
Yeah, it's an interesting place and what it's done and how it has grown and how it's maintained. And of course, this year was a struggle because they allowed 10,000 I think in for the race in August, and it looked like they were the people there to pick up after the race. 10,000.
Yeah, that's about how much it's about how many people you bring in to do the cleanup. That's a good point. I don't know. It's sad, and I know we all are praying that we can get out from underneath this and not have that constant threat in our lives.
How long did it take you to write this book? When did you start?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I got the idea, believe it or not, around 2001.
Really?
And I started writing some things, and I've always been a good writer, but I'd never attempted a book, let alone a novel style book. And so I learned a lot, and I worked with a writing consultant that works with people specifically about writing books. So my experience in writing was useful, but I had to learn some new tricks. And I wrote a lot of stuff and then threw it away and took a fragment of that and started again. And then, as you said, I was involved with a lot of things, and I was in executive positions. It was just really hard to find any time. So I would set it aside for years before I would go back to it. And one thing we talk about this pandemic, it really, I was getting closer, but basically being shut in, I had more time, to, and my work with SVRA really slowed down because a lot of the races were canceled, and there's no spectators. We couldn't do V-Rock, which is really a fan-oriented, race. So there wasn't a need to write a lot about it because it wasn't going to run. So Tony's kept me busy, but not nearly as busy as previous years. So I was like, man, there's no better time to put the pedal to the metal and finish this thing. And that's what I did. And I got to tell you, I guess I'm bragging, but it's just fact. My publisher sent it to an outfit called Reader's Favorite. And I kind of cringed because, hearing from a critic for the first time. And I was so delighted. They came back and gave me a 5-star rating, their highest rating, and wrote a review that was just marvelous. And I've got it on my website. I have another website, markgdill.com, and it's part of the best practices I've learned about how do you market a book, whether you're traditionally published or independent published. Every author needs their own website, and that review's on the homepage, and we've got a lot of good stuff in there. So, and you can buy books directly from there. You can order it now and receive it within a few days, and that's from the publisher, BookBaby, but it'll be on Amazon and Barnes and Noble by the 25th of November. So that's where there's a really huge market channel.
Yeah, well, give me your two website addresses where you can find the stories and information and more about you and what you do and what you've done and where you've been and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, the one I've been working on for years, which has proved invaluable in acquainting my work with a community, is firstsuperspeedway.com. All one word, no periods, no hyphens, firstsuperspeedway.com, and it's totally free. And if you like racing history, and especially the history of this era, like I said, it's the world's largest collection. It just is. And it would take you months, years to try to assemble something similar by going through the channels that I did, even going to libraries and siphoning through. There were days when I was looking at so much microfilm, Don, that I thought I was going to go blind. I mean, in there. I'm serious. And so it's that firstsuperspeedway.com is the product of all that. And it put me in contact with a lot of people that I know will be interested in reading my book. My author's page is markgdill.com. Mark spelled with a K. And again, I've got some really good stuff on there. Conrad Picciarello, which would be another guy that would be good to be on your show. He is like Terry Lingner's right-hand man, and he's CEO of Innovative Edit. And if you've never had him on your show, he was the director of the Indianapolis 500 when it was on ABC or ESPN. He took me into the trailer one time, and it was just amazing. It looked like Houston, Space Center and all these TVs, and he'd see something happen and he'd tell somebody, cut to turn two, cut to turn two. And that was just the entire time. And I was just so impressed. That's a major, and he knows so much. Anyway, they've produced a video trailer for my book that I'm very pleased with. So that's on my website. Also, if I can put a plug in, let me see if I can. I'm wearing a t-shirt.
Wow.
We've got, with our logo on it, we've got a shop that you can access on markgdill.com. Hey, you said it. Christmas is coming up, and there's a lot of good stuff. I'm really proud of it. The beautiful thing about this arrangement, and the same thing with my publisher, is that they all do print on demand. And
your assistant came and gave you a little liquid.
It wasn't liquid. She heard me talk about merchandise. We've also got coffee cups. So thanks for letting me do the full-on commercial here. But it's all really high-quality stuff. And I got a hoodie, and I've ordered like from Fanatics before to get my IU hoodie and the other two schools I went to. And their stuff is great. It's only like $30, so it's very competitive with the other hoodies that you might purchase from other sources. So sorry to go off on that, but this is my big opportunity, I guess.
I get stuff from Fanatics every day, sometimes twice a day with stuff they have. I'll have to take a look next time, see if you are on the, shown as some of the stuff you can buy there. But I get stuff from them.
Well, no, I'm not on Fanatics, but I'm on this called Spread Shop. And again, you can link to it through my site.
Okay.
And again, they offer print on demand. So the logos are printed onto the merchandise as they are ordered. And that's wonderful when you're, I'm kind of a shoestring operation, and I don't want to carry, like 1,000 coffee mugs. I wouldn't. But their stuff is high quality, and when you order it, it's printed and sent to you. So it's terrific.
Well, I've known you for a number of years, and I found that you've always been a straight shooter. You've always been interested in the sport and done the best that you could do to enhance a sport in any way that you were asked to, or if you got an idea. So I think for you to take the time to write a book about an era that even people like me, I've been here 60 years, and there's guys that have been here 75 and 80 years. They might not remember some of the things that you have dug up, and they go, oh my gosh, really? I was a young
Yeah.
baby when this happened, but I was alive and I didn't know it. So be interesting to
Yeah,
read.
well, like I say, it starts in 1902 because I don't think there's anybody left from that time period. So if there is, I want to meet them.
Yeah.
But I didn't, that's part of it. I've just been kind of passionate from that era in general. I think Teddy Roosevelt was a fascinating president. So he was during that time. And so and my grandfather was born in 1905. The only of the two grandfathers I had that I met. And my dad told me lots of stories, and we were all from Indianapolis. So I really had a feel and a fascination for what it was like to live back then. I wanted to tell that story. So the context of this history is just as important to me as the actual racing part. And I want to paint a vivid picture for people to what it was like to live back then. One example is horses used to die in the street and then sit there and rot until somebody like in downtown Indianapolis and other big cities, they died. And so they just sat there for a while until somebody got around to, dismembering them or vultures or maggots got rid of them. But it was also a metaphor, I think, for the changing of the times. The horses were fading away as primary transportation and the cars were coming online. And a big part of all that was racing. It was just more manufacturers were involved in racing back then than at any other time of auto racing throughout our history. And it was all because they were eager to establish their brand names and demonstrate, the qualities of their products, and to learn from that, learn from the competition how to improve them. So that old comment about the Speedway being a testing center or a development platform, it was true.
Yep.
It was really true. And Carl Fisher was a patriot, and he was upset that the country as a whole really didn't have its act together in competing with the Europeans. And he wanted to do something. And the public roads were so terrible. So it was hard to do any real testing on them. So he wanted to create this speedway where people could come, manufacturers could come and just run the cars absolutely fast, push them to their limits. He left the gates open 365 days of the year. There didn't have to be anybody there. If you were a manufacturer, if you were Marmon or National or whatever, because there were at least a dozen manufacturers at that time in Indianapolis. They could just drive out to the speedway and jump on the track and just go like bats out of hell. And, just totally different world.
Well, you've brought the past to light again. And again, where can you purchase your book?
Well, I can say you can go to markgdill.com and you can see books as one of the options to click through. And there's a link that you can purchase it from bookbaby.com. But probably the best route is to go through my website and just click on the books and then click on, the link will take you to where you can buy it, just like it'll take you to where you can buy the merchandise. You can also get it on Amazon Kindle. It's available in the Kindle format now, and it's available at Barnes and Noble in the e-format. And both those retailers, you can pre-order it if you really are committed to Amazon. You can pre-order it from Amazon right now, but it won't become generally available for about another month through Amazon.
Well,
Thanks for asking.
I wish you well with it. I, of course, will chase down a copy somewhere. Then I got to find you to get it signed. And
Yeah,
so,
we'll go to markgdill.com. Well, let's talk offline. We'll figure out a way to get you an autographed copy. I am offering autographed copies at a premium. It takes some effort to sign these things and mail them, take them to the post office, all that stuff. But for Don K, we'll figure it out. So just reach out to me and we'll do it.
all right. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for
Sure.
what you've done in the past, and probably one of the few guys that can say you worked for a company that the company finished 1-2 in an Indianapolis 500. That was quite an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that was the first time since 1949 or 48 that a sponsor, and back then it was Blue Crown, that a sponsor had their cars finish 1-2. There's been other 1-2 finishes, but when we talk about sponsors, it was great to see the two Nortel cars battling it out to the end, and Ari came out ahead and Scott was right behind him. It was wonderful.
all right. Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for the chatter.
Thank you.
And I look forward to reading your book, and I hope a lot of other people say, "Well, I want to find out the history. I love the sport now, but how did it get here?" And you're the one that's going to tell them how it started and how it got there.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for your time.
obviously, I hope people are interested.
Well, I hope so. After all, it took you 19 years to write the book.
Yeah, it was a long gestation period.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky. If I'd have started something and set it aside for 7 or 8 years, I'd have never found where I put it.
Yeah, I was just Don, the first time I thought I wanted to write a book about the Speedway, I was 11 years old. And my mom drove me down to the Marion County Public Library, and I got on their machine to see microfilm. And I was overwhelmed. And I probably couldn't articulate it at the time, but I knew it was way over my head. But it was always something I just felt like I had to do. So I wasn't ever going to give up on it.
Thank you. Thank heavens you didn't. Look forward to reading it. Again, my guest is Mark Dill, who is, among other things, is now an author. And the name of the book is?
The Legend of the First Super Speedway.
There you go. Look it up. He told you where to find it. And if you didn't get it, back up the video and he'll tell you again. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your time, and look forward to chatting with you again somewhere, sometime, somehow.
Yeah, I sure hope we can do it in person.
Will do. Thanks. We have more guests upcoming in the coming days and weeks, so stick with us. We'll be back again. Until the next time we see you, this is Don K saying thanks for watching. See you again next time.